So I'm not a huge fan of self-portraits, or let's be real, selfies. But in order to get better at a craft like photography, you need to learn or at least get to know every aspect of it. And portrait photography is one very important or at least very big aspect of photography. So let's get started. So as always, I did a bunch of research and I found a whole bunch of tutorials online. Now, it turns out that one video about self-photography is probably not even close to being enough. So for this first attempt, let's try some long exposure self-portraits. Now, this special technique has the advantage that we are not necessarily relying on any artificial light source. So let's get to it.
Here's the gear that you need. A camera, of course with a lens. This one is the 18 to 55mm kit lens, and yourself, obviously. Optionally, you can also use a tripod. The tripod is of course optional, but it will make your life so much easier. So I'm going to use it. If you don't have one, you can for instance use a pile of books, a trigger remote, as it is also way more comfortable to use a trigger remote than the time on a camera. I'm going to do that as well. Now, not everybody has a trigger remote, but you can use the timer function of your camera. For my camera, it works this way: flashes, ND filters, lights, a backdrop, and any accessory.
So before we actually get started shooting, you want to take care of two things. First, your clothing, and second, any beard that you might have and your hair. So while I'm taking care of my beard and my hair, I'm going to let my girlfriend decide on which outfit I should wear. Honey?
Yeah?
Can you decide on my outfit?
Okay.
See, this is great. Okay, so before we get started, let me just quickly walk through what I did to build up my studio. So behind there I just hung a black reflector actually. So on the other side there is a silver reflector, and if you turn this cover you have a gold and white reflector. Up there I have placed my camera. We're currently at about 30mm, I guess, and I have attached a trigger remote here. And if we take a look at the back of the camera, we're currently at 5 seconds exposure, ISO 100 and f22. I did some experiments beforehand, to be honest, but I believe that 5 seconds exposure is too long if we're just using this setup. So we'll go for some test shots and you'll see them on the screen right now. Okay, so we did the first experiments and they turned out actually to be good, at least for the setup that we're working with. And I think they're actually quite decent. So the first experiments were done. Now we want to step it up a bit. So the next step will be we're stepping up the gear a little bit. And now we're incorporating some light. So as you have seen, the pictures were kind of monochromatic, even though they were in color. Because my t-shirt, it has a blue tint and the background is black, and I'm personally pretty white. So there is nothing too much of color. But we can actually use our mobile phone for some colored splashes in there. So we're going to try that. In regards to settings, I will show the settings for the final pictures. Quick interruption from the editing desk. So I just realized that the pictures, or the majority of the pictures, were just slightly out of focus, or a little bit more than that. Now, the problem was that my camera cannot focus in these dark scenarios. What you can do to combat that is setting the focus to actually manual focus and pre-focus on your face, and then everything should be fine. Back to the video. Okay, so these pictures turn out actually really nice, and it's really fun working with color there. Now you have seen one problem. I stopped down the shutter speed to 1 second, and even though my face was pretty blurry because I had to move my arm myself, so I was a little bit in of a movement, and that turned out to be kind of awkward, at least for the camera and the pictures therefore. Now we are going to incorporate a flash and ND filter. And the idea behind that is actually if we can stop down the ND filter so much that the picture is actually pitch black, then we're flashing our face from any angle basically, and then we can go and paint with our phone a colored streak into it. So that would be kind of interesting. Okay, so using the phone as another light source is actually pretty cool, and these tints of color work pretty well. However, I think with a real LED RGB or anything that has a little bit more power than your phone screen, it probably makes just more sense. But since this is budget, the phone works absolutely fine. You can go into Lightroom or Photoshop and maybe you repaint the light streaks, or actually give it another color, or maybe just punch the exposure, anything like that. But another budget option that you might want to consider is using an actual flashlight. So I have here a headlamp that I have lying around. So and this one is actually pretty bright. So I'm going to use that to paint some white light streaks into the picture, and hopefully that works out. Let's see. Okay, that was a whole bunch of fun. So going for long exposure actually enables a whole bunch of things, but it turns out that you probably want to use at least some kind of additional flash just to stop down the shutter speed or extend the shutter speed basically, to have the possibility of light painting. I think that leverages the picture from mediocre to actually good on a budget. So things that you can improve for yourself if you have something is using a softbox for the flash. Maybe use a 2 flash setup if you have something like that, or anything like that. But for the future, I'll keep you updated, since I'm definitely going to keep on working on my self-portrait skills and see what we can do there. So there will be definitely different approaches. So check back again. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. That would help me out a lot. See you in the next video.